All right, you guys, welcome to another episode of the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. I'm super excited to be back to get some new interviews going here. As you guys know, I have been on the road, moving all the way from Hawaii to Washington, D.C. I got here 2 days ago, and I am recording a new podcast for you guys. And I have a very special guest. This is my friend, Kim is a business coach, a strategist for hairstylists. She's been an independent, should I say hairstylist? Or should I say, I know we were talking before the call about identifying as a business owner. And so I want to identify you as a business owner and also as a hairstylist. But you have been working independently since 2003. After you had your baby, you had to think something has to give, right? I'm in the same boat. I feel that same way of having a baby and trying to figure out the most time. But something that you said that was so interesting to me is you said, after I had my baby, I learned how to say no. And I went from working full-time to part-time, but my income doubled.
Yes.
And so that is what I was like, all right, this girl's got to be on the podcast because independent hairstylists are very, very similar to solo estheticians. So I want to just kind of talk about that today and talk about how solo estheticians, how independent hairstylists, how we can find out, like, are we leaving money on the table? How do we think of ourselves as business owners rather than identifying as estheticians or as hairstylists, as beauty professionals? How do we get to that place where we really start earning a livelihood, earning the money that we should be earning?
Yeah. So it is so similar for hairstylists and estheticians. I mean, across the board with everything that we do, the clients that we see, the lives that we have. That for me personally, I went from full-time to part-time after having my son. He currently, as we're recording this, he's 3.5. And I found that he ended up becoming my why. And so if I was going to be at the salon and away from him, it allowed me to start saying no. And it allowed me to start, if I ever had like a last minute cancellation or something, I'm sitting at the salon when I could be home with him. And I started just feeling frustrated with it and started realizing I needed more structure within my business. I needed to own that I was a business owner. That was such a huge thing. I think so many of us as beauty professionals, we do what we love. So we identify as, I'm an esthetician or I'm a hairstylist, when in fact, I really need to say I'm a business owner and be excited and be proud of that.
I think that's a really great point. But I think a lot of that comes because we're creatives. A lot of us are very creative. A lot of us, we get into this because we love connecting and helping people. And a lot of us identify as not numbers people or not marketing people. Exactly. And it doesn't really help that they don't, I don't know in cosmetology school, but in aesthetics, they really don't teach very much about business. You know, there's such a small time, and the schools have really suffered. The schools, it's not any fault of the schools. I mean, they are doing the best that they can, but they have so many requirements that they need to get in that school would not be affordable if they had to put in all that other curriculum. So,
right. Well, and I think a lot of schools too, their focus is on you achieving your license and getting your license. It's not necessarily to be successful in the industry. I do know some schools that have business portions in it, but it is still such a small portion. And so that's why it's so important to connect and shadow with somebody that has been seasoned in the industry that can really show you the ways. And I know I definitely felt super lost out of beauty school, just searching for, how to run my business, because I leased right out of beauty school 14 years ago. And it was a good fit for me at the time. And, but I looked at other people in the industry that were doing it. I had some great mentors that helped out, teaching me the business side of things, but I still felt like I was lost and I struggled. And, until I just kind of pieced some things together and I got the confidence, to make certain decisions. And again, identifying myself as a business owner, I was able to make those shifts. And in fact, the year after I had my son, since I was part-time, I actually was able to double my income in less than a year, utilizing certain things. And like we were talking about, stop leaving money on the table. So
No,
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
I know everybody's going to want to get into that. Like, okay, how did she double her income? But let's go back. I want to revisit because you briefly said, my son is my why. And so I want to kind of talk about your why, because I think that that is something that gets overlooked a lot. A lot of people, it's their job. But when you find something more than money that can drive you or that you feel passionate about, I think it really it shifts how we act and how we show up in business. And so before you had your son, did you know what your why was, or did you even think about, had you just like heard like, oh, you have to have a why?
I actually, I don't even think that I heard about that. And like, even looking back, I feel like, maybe it was to travel or, buy a home or things like that. But I don't think that I would have dove deep enough into that why then. I can't even imagine what it was. I almost, looking back, I feel like I was just this lost, I was just working and I'm traveling and doing all these things. And the meaning behind it wasn't necessarily all there. It was just like, well, I was doing it because that's what you do.
Mm-hmm. So when you started saying no, because you found your why, you found your son was the reason, like, and I think a lot of estheticians can relate to that because a lot of estheticians are moms, and it's really hard to be like, why am I sitting at work when I could be, I mean, childcare is really expensive. I'm learning, it's one of those things that it's like, do you work all day? If you're working all day away from your kid, you want to make sure that you're making enough money to contribute to your household, not just enough to pay for daycare. Otherwise, you would just stay home,
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
and I think that just that scenario of childcare and things is very common in our industry, because part of the reason I even chose to be a hairstylist is for the flexibility in the schedule, because I knew that I either was going to be either a stay-at-home mom or work part-time, who knew that I would find an industry that I was so in love with. And so I knew that I didn't want to leave it. And so for me, the negotiation was to be part-time. But again, for me to be away, the way that I viewed it, I was like, well, if I have to pay someone to watch our child while I'm away, there needs to be compensation in that, and so I started raising my prices, because if I need to be away from him and there's a cost at it, I just looked at it as it was just a business transaction. And I also want to utilize my time the best I can while I'm away. So I would maximize my time behind the chair, start implementing certain policies, and just creating that structure. So if I was away from him, that I was using that time the best I could.
okay, so you mentioned that you created a cancellation policy. So that was something you didn't have in place. You raised your prices. What else did you do?
Well, so it's funny. So I had a cancellation policy. I didn't apply it. I didn't let my clients know about it. So I had one, but that's totally something else. Let's see. I mean, I really started focusing on myself when I was on maternity leave. Specifically, I actually was on Instagram a lot, and I was like, oh my goodness, I need to step up my Instagram game. I was seeing all these people with these beautiful feeds. And I learned that was such a great way to market myself. So I got really into marketing myself and upping my value and communicating my value to my clients, to future clients, and just started to really learn what branding was, and just really dove into like the business side of things. And I started learning was that if I actually focused more on the business side of things, the actual work behind the chair became less and I was making more. I was starting the cycle of working smarter and not harder on my business, which I'm really passionate about. I coach to that a lot. I think that if you really do start working on your business side of things, it just makes everything so much easier.
So is that when you were on maternity, is that when you started identifying as a business owner rather than a hairstylist?
I would say I did identify before I had my son as a business owner, maybe 2 years or so, 2 or 3 years before I had him, I started identifying. But I still didn't know how to say no quite yet, or to learn what I wanted to say no to.
Okay.
What wasn't in the vision of my life and my family's life. And now I make my business decisions based on myself and my family and my own business.
So let's talk about raising prices because that is something that can be really challenging for a lot of people. And my thoughts are you shouldn't really focus on what anyone else's prices are. You should focus on what you offer and, not using price as your competitive advantage. Do you agree with that, disagree with that? Or how did you go about, deciding like how much you were going to raise your prices?
Yeah, that is really such a great question. And I totally agree with you. I find that with pricing, and even for myself, if you start comparing yourself to others and looking around, that sometimes you can either let that hold you back if deep down you know your value is worth more, or your clients will pay more for your time. I Pricing and raising prices is definitely something I'm super passionate about in discussing, because I don't think it's talked about enough. It's almost taboo. And I know so many stylists out there that haven't raised their prices in 20 years even.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and even in 10 years, like they're still charging the same as what they were. And sometimes if you flip it and you think, like, if you were working a corporate job for even 5 years, and you didn't get a raise in those 5 years, like, you would leave.
Mm-hmm.
And the same goes for us, that, we need to be reevaluating. And I think there's such a fear that you're going to lose clients over raising your prices, or what they're going to think of you, or however that goes. And generally, when I talk about raising prices, I use a general rule of thumb is that you need to just accept the fact you are going to lose clients. In fact, you actually should plan to lose about 10% of your clients when you do raise your prices. And if you don't lose those clients, you didn't raise your prices enough, because what you want to do is you want to leave room so you can gain the clients that are going to pay your new prices. And even the prices that somebody has currently are too much for somebody else, but they're not too much for another person. And so somebody's always going to think you're too expensive, no matter what it is.
I love that perspective of instead of worrying about losing your clients, you're focusing on making room for new clients. So it's really this like mindset of abundance and welcoming in new rather than grasping on and holding on to the ones. And it's not that we want to let go of our clients because so many of them we have really beautiful relationships with, but you also have to grow and evolve as a business owner. You are a business, and that is part of it. I know that when I was working in med spas, every single year, when I was a spa director, every single year, every skincare line that we carried, we would get a letter and they would say, these are, thank you for being our customer, but these are our price increases for the next year. And every year, the product prices, our wholesale prices would go up. It's just a cost of doing business. So it makes sense that when you have increased costs in business plus inflation, you're actually losing money every year that you don't raise your prices.
Yes, exactly. And the fact, that example that you just gave, is what happens is when that happens, you already have an expectation it's going to happen next year. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's something else, is when you start investing in yourself and you start being able to get to a point when you can raise your prices, your clients actually expect it. And every single time I raise my prices, it's such a good feeling though too. But most of my clients congratulate me. They say, "Good, way to go." Yeah, like, or yeah, it's about time that I'm expecting that. They start to expect that.
So, okay, so we talked about cancellation and price increases. What else did you do? How else did you double that income? Saying no to things, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we talked about table money at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
And so I kind of look at income of, as a business owner, we focus on the margins of our business, meaning that extra. So I look at income as the money coming in. So new clients, raising your prices, selling more retail, actual money that's coming into you. Then there's the expenses. So if you can make those, if those expenses go up or down. So if you decide to splurge on a class one year, they might go up a little bit, but maybe you're working on finding a product line that doesn't cost as much. So then those might go down. That's another way. And then the third way is that table money. And I like to explain it as money that I was leaving on the table. So I realized that I was losing out on this money on these cancellations and last minute cancellations that I was having. And so I started just communicating to my clients what my cancellation policy was to try to avoid those and stop losing money. So I hardly have any cancellations at all. And if they do, they pay a cancellation policy, or they pay a cancellation fee. And then I also did it in not discounting my services. Before my son, I was doing friends and family discounts. And that was so big, and just other discounts as well. But it's amazing when you're self-employed, you get to choose your prices like we were talking about earlier. And so when you go to check your client out, you get to choose the price that you're charging them. And sometimes people shave off, $5, $10, $20 here and there, or they don't charge for a service that they performed, or they do a friends and family discount. And
it adds up.
It really adds up. And so I actually did an experiment. I actually wanted to see how much I was discounting. And for your listeners, if they are listening and they are a discounter and they know they are, this is a great exercise. It is an eye-opening exercise that I did where for 1 month, I wrote down all of my services that I did. And then I wrote down what I charged for those services. And then in the next column, I actually wrote down what I should have charged for those services. And it was over $1,000 that I discounted in 1 month, because it adds up. You don't day to day, week to week. I mean, that's over $12,000 a year that I was missing out on just in discounting. And so that was something that I said, and I even let my friends and family know when after I come back from maternity leave, I will be no longer doing friends and family discounts. And I just nipped it then. I do no more discounts. Because again, if I was going to be away from him, I didn't want to have the feeling of resenting a client for coming in and discounting the services. And it went over totally fine. Everybody gets it. Everybody completely understood. And so that was another huge way, was not discounting services any longer. And it also made me feel really good about what I was doing and about myself as well.
You felt valued.
I did.
Yeah. So when I think about leaving money on the table, definitely cancellations is a huge one. But I also think about added value when there's so many times we're so worried. Well, I don't know about hairstylists, but I know in the world of aesthetics, we're so worried about sounding pushy. We're so worried about sounding salesy. We don't want to take advantage of our clients. And so we don't ask for the add-on or for the additional service. And I will never say, I'm never like offer your client something, everything you offer them should be something that they truly need that will help them reach their goals. But don't be afraid to say, did you want to add on the neck, if we're doing the neck, or I can do the hands or these little, or do you need your brows waxed or whatever it is, because those little teeny things that maybe a brow wax is $25, but if you do that to 4 people, that's an extra $100 a day, $500 a week, $2,000 a month.
Yes. Like it adds up.
It adds up.
Yes. And I coach to doing add-on services as a really easy way to make that extra money in a month. And as somebody, I'm a hairstylist, so I'm in the beauty industry. I'm a cosmetologist, so I'm able to do brow waxes and skin and stuff, but it's not my thing. And I tell the girls I work with all the time when I go get a facial, like, just tell me what I need, because this is not my forte. I will buy any product they tell me to buy because it's not my thing. If they say, did you want a brow wax? Like, do I need one? They're like, yeah, you need one. I'm like, okay, thank you. Like, I appreciate when they offer me those services. And even the same goes for hairstylists. The add-on services that I offer clients as far as like treatments, or if I could tell they might just need a few highlights up around the face just to brighten them up, I genuinely believe in my heart of hearts that it's a service that will make them feel better and that they need. And again, like you said, if they didn't need it, I wouldn't offer it. But we're the professional, and we need to, again, identify ourselves with a professional. They're coming to us because they want our professional opinion. And it's our job. That's something to own. It's our job to offer them those services, because they might not even know. And if someone's ever been in the situation where they had a client and you didn't offer that service, but somebody else did and they loved it, they're going to go to that somebody else. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah. So what has changed? Like for you, you had that year after your son was born. What continued to shift? What continued to grow and evolve as you were like, hey, wow, I'm a business owner. I'm learning how to say no. I'm implementing these policies. I doubled my income. There's obviously got to be more to this. How can I continue to grow and evolve? What path did you take?
Well, results that I got from that was I have such a quality of client in my chair. So going to the salon is so enjoyable. It's so full circle. It's like it just, like we talked about bringing abundance, it brought the best clients into my life, and it continually brings the best clients into my life. It's evolved into other hairstylists messaging me asking how I do it. And so now I'm able to share that with other hairstylists through my coaching. It has freed up my schedule. So I actually, last year, I think my numbers showed that I did about a month's worth of less clients. So I saw less clients last year and I made more than I did the year before. So I'm able to actually utilize my time in other areas. I'm able to have dinner with my family. I'm able to pick my son up from preschool and drop him off. We're able to travel more as a family. We have a lot more freedom in our schedule, which was really important to us. To not feel stressed with that, another thing that actually changed was how I communicate with clients. So what's very common in our industry as well is, texting your clients at 9:00 at night to book appointments or things like that and get them booked. I only communicate through my clients through email, and I respond during work hours, and that's it. So those weekends are no longer spent texting clients for appointments or things like that. I'm booked out. I'm almost booked out through Christmas at this point. So I leave about 3 months booked out, keep my schedule open 3 months for my clients. And so it's just keeps snowballing, and it's been really great.
That's amazing. And I think that anyone in our industry would love to be booked out through Christmas, because that gives you the ability to plan. Right. And one thing that I believe hairstylists do as well, but estheticians, we end up working on the weekends and we set our schedules based off of what our clients need. And it almost feels more like you're coming into your own power, creating your own structure when you're like, no, I'm working 9 to 5 or whatever, 9 to 3 or whatever your schedule is that works with your life, like a true business.
Yes. Yeah. So
Starbucks is not going to be like, I'm going to work on this day,
Yes. Changing my hours was one thing that I also did change. So I stopped working Saturdays, which was a big, I was working every other Saturday before. I no longer work Saturdays, which is really great. And then now I no longer work evenings, which is also really great. So I work 3 days a week behind the chair, and then I do coaching the other 2 days a week. And it's just been so great to think of how work fits into my life instead of the other way around, how my life was fitting into work. Because again, we love what we do so much that those lines get blurred so easily. Mm-hmm. And you start feeling like you have to work Saturday or a really long Saturday for specific clients. And they'll actually come and take a day off, and they'll come and see you in the afternoon if that's what it feels like. Because what happens is we start to feel resentful for having to come in on a Saturday, or you just don't feel as good about it. And your clients can feel that. They can feel that energy. And it's not good for anybody. And, there's a myth out there that you have to work nights and weekends to have a successful career. And if that was true, everybody you know that was successful would be only working nights and weekends. And it's not true, you know?
So, what advice would you give to an esthetician who's like, okay, this all sounds great, but what's the first step? Like, how do I take that first step into making more money? What do you think? It's raising the prices, the cancellation policy, saying no? Like,
I think it really goes so much deeper than that. I think it really goes down to creating that vision that you have for your business, like writing down your dream hours. What does that look like? What does your life look like if you could make that kind of money? Or, you know, I coach like my own students of what's your dream schedule? And then figuring that out. I think having open communication with your clients is key. Talking to them about it, talking to them about your why, talking to them about your policies and things. Clients are so understanding. If all of a sudden, you know, so when I took my Saturdays off, for example, I let them know it was so I could spend more time with my family. They know I have a small son and this is just the season of life I'm in. It doesn't mean down the road it's going to be, you know, it might be different down the road. It's just the season I'm currently in. Who's going to say, no, I don't want you spending time with your family? You know, like they were all so understanding because they've been there. Most of our clients are moms or they're, you know, they totally get it. And if that is something like taking Saturdays off, I just found someone else that is in a season of their life that can work Saturdays and wants to, because I was there at one point and that was great. Now I'm just in a new parenting season and that's it. It's just like owning that, but really creating that vision and start just welcoming that into your life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'll be sure to include all of your social media links and everything in the show notes so that all the estheticians that want to can follow you and stay connected with you. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to make this feel complete?
I just think that we honestly work in the best industry. We get to connect and have a specific connection with our clients like no other. And the one thing that I hate seeing the most is beauty professionals with such a passion for our industry that end up not focusing on the business part of it enough, and they get burnt out and they stop doing what they love to do. It breaks my heart to see estheticians and hairstylists almost give up on their dream because of lack of resources or lack of just education of not knowing how to run their business professionally and getting it going. And so that's why I'm just trying to, just like you, use this platform to spread the message of business building and how it can really help you live your dream, because it's possible. So that's it.
It is possible. Very good. Very good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and for being on the show. And you guys be sure to follow Kim. She's got a great Instagram feed. And if you have any questions or want to continue this conversation, go to the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast and we can continue the conversation over there.